Welcome, everyone. It is noon Eastern time, 7 p.m. in Israel. And welcome to, I believe, our 23rd edition of #Webinar Wednesdays live from Israel. Today, we have an incredible webinar set up for you on cutting-edge cancer research coming out of Israel. And we've partnered today with the American Friends of Soroka Medical Center and have their executive director, Rachel Heisler-Scheinfeld, with us. Rachel, we appreciate the partnership. We love these webinars, giving our audience insight into one of the most dynamic universities in the world, but certainly in Israel, and one of the most important institutions, along with Soroka Medical Center, to the future of Israel and developing the Negev. We have Professor Itzhak Avital. He's going to be amazing and incredibly interesting, but before he talks, why don't I throw it to you, Rachel, just to give a little introduction to our audience about Soroka Medical Center.
Thank you, Doug, for the warm introduction. We at American Friends of Soroka Medical Center share your excitement and your pride in the joint accomplishments of Ben-Gurion University and Soroka Medical Center. I'd like to take a moment for a very quick introduction to those of you who are not yet well acquainted with Soroka Medical Center, also known as Israel's healthcare oasis. Soroka is the only major medical center for the entire Negev region, which is the lower 60% of Israel's land. It's rapidly growing to meet the evolving needs of the Negev region, which is undergoing a dramatic evolution. And here's a quick flavor of some notable accomplishments. Soroka is ranked as the best Israeli hospital in infection control, which is one of the most critical healthcare metrics. It's home to a world-class genetics research center where rare genetic diseases are decoded, and it has the busiest emergency room in all of Israel. Indeed, the Francis and Nathan Kirsch Emergency Department and Trauma Center are highly strategic to Israel, given the newly relocated IDF training bases in the region and our close proximity to Gaza. We also have the first inpatient rehabilitation center for the Negev and one of Israel's busiest labor and delivery centers. Nearly 20,000 babies are born each year at our Saban Birth and Maternity Center. And of those babies, 50% are Arab, which represents the true diversity of the region. Soroka Medical Center is a true living symbol of peaceful coexistence. But today, all of this innovation is taking place against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. And Soroka has been at the epicenter of testing and treatment and research, and now vaccination. I invite you to visit our website, soroka.org, and meet some of our infectious disease experts and learn about Soroka's response to COVID. Looking forward today to the webinar experience with Dr. Avital. The Legacy Heritage Oncology Center was created in 2018 to fill a major infrastructure gap in healthcare for the residents of the Negev. With the new state-of-the-art building, patients now receive their care in an integrated setting that's conducive to healing, bringing together research, treatment, education, and testing under one roof. The Oncology Center is also home to the Dr. Larry Norton Cancer Institute. Dr. Norton, one of the world's leading oncologists, identified Soroka as the place in the world where a next generation of cancer breakthroughs will happen. Why? Given the confluence of a unique ecosystem of high tech, the IDF, the world-class mathematical and scientific leaders at Ben-Gurion University, and Soroka's drive to excel and to heal. Dr. Avital is the founding medical director of the Comprehensive Cancer Center. He is a true visionary who has a heart of gold and a pioneering spirit. He relentlessly pursues innovation in the field of oncology that helps us at Soroka Medical Center fulfill our vision, which is saving lives in Israel and around the world. We invite you and hope you will stay connected with American Friends of Soroka and follow the cutting edge developments yet to come. And now back to you, Doug.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That was wonderful. We're really proud of the partnership, and many people don't realize the collaboration between Ben-Gurion University and Soroka Medical Center. And so hopefully after this webinar, everybody will be so much more intrigued and interested in being involved with both organizations. Our faculty are actually doctors and clinicians at Soroka. So there's all kinds of joint work that we do together. As you know, Ben-Gurion University has 3 campuses and 20,000 students. Our main campus is in Beersheba, but also Sde Boker and Eilat. We have 6 faculties, which in the US we call colleges. This webinar is going to focus in on our Faculty of Health Sciences, of which the medical school is a part of. So that brings us really to Professor Itzhak Avital, who has Rachel mentioned a lot about his bio, so I'm going to just add a few other elements. He teaches surgery at BGU's Joyce and Irving Goldman Medical School and is the chairman of surgery at Soroka Medical Center. As Rachel mentioned, he's also the founding executive medical director of the Legacy Heritage Oncology Center and Dr. Larry Norton Institute. He also heads the Cancer Stem Cells Laboratory at BGU's National Institute for Biotechnology in the Negev and serves as the co-chair of Ben-Gurion University's Precision OncoMedicine Hub. The Hub's goal is to share knowledge and academic research on oncology, ultimately with the objective to solve international cancer problems as well as those specific to the Negev population. Professor Avital was born in Beersheba. Prior to returning to Beersheba in 2016, he held many positions in the United States at institutions including Rutgers, Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and the National Cancer Institute of the NIH. Dr. Avital received his bachelor's degree from Touro College and New York University. He obtained his medical degree from New York University. And as a true underachiever, he also has his MBA from George Washington University's School of Business. If working in the States and Israel wasn't enough, Professor Avital has also had many quite extensive international experience, including roles as professor of surgery at both the University of Novi Sad in Serbia, as well as the Chinese National Colorectal Center Cancer Institute in Nanjing, China. Itzhak, as I mentioned to you earlier when we were meeting, if my mother was alive today, she would call me after this webinar and tell me I underachieved in life. But we're so excited to have you. Just for the participants, the way this webinar is going to work is Itzhak's going to do a little PowerPoint presentation. While he's giving his presentation, feel free to ask questions by just clicking on the Q&A function. I'll read those questions, and at the end of Professor Avital's talk, we'll do our best to work through the questions. Welcome to #Webinar Wednesday, Professor Itzhak Avital.
So, Rachel and Doug, thank you very much for the nice presentation. I think it's not overachievement, but it's over-presenting. What I chose today to share with you, it's something which is a little bit unusual. It's not going to be about cancer stem cell research, which I do, which this is my passion in the lab. But it's a new field that I believe that we are the first one in Israel and one of the first in the world to introduce. And it's about nutrition. And the titles say that it's a metabolic biomarker drive oncotherapy. In other words, it's a precise metabolic nutrition protocol. So what are we talking here about? So each cancer tumor has a different metabolic and genetic profile that dictates personalized treatment for each person. What do I mean by this statement? Each cancer select a set of metabolic pathway and they get addicted to this metabolic pathway. What do I mean? So if I was a tumor, I select, refined sugar as my addiction. And if you take this from me, I'm getting really uneasy with that. Similarly, cancer, and in this case, we are going to speak about pancreatic cancer, triple negative breast cancer in particular. They get addicted to the molecule amino acid that is named glutamine. More about it a little bit later. What we are talking here about? You all have heard that we, in order to treat nowadays patients, we take the tumors, we digest the tumor, we do a genetic profiling, and we identified mutations, and then we target those mutations, which means I can treat colon cancer in one person exactly as I treat breast cancer in another person, because we treat mutation, we don't treat tumor, we treat mutation, and that's personalized oncology. Because there is this characteristics of cancer that they get addicted to a particular metabolic pathway, which means in order to derive energy and survive, they use glutamine. In our particular example today, there are other tumors use other substances. So what we do, we take from patient, as you can see here in the left-hand side of the slide, we take patients, we take from them blood, urine, and stool. We actually send it to United States because the labs exist to analyze it in United States. We get a picture of the metabolic profile. We take this metabolic profile and we put it into a unique algorithm that is unique to us here in Ben Gurion and in Soroka. For me, I do not differentiate much between Soroka and Ben Gurion. One word about it, in Soroka, I take care of patient, and in Ben Gurion, I take care of my brain. That's where my intellect is getting stimulated and working. That's where we are coming up with new methods to treat cancer. So we take this algorithm, we perform the analysis, and then we discover how is it that particular person, I apologize, how that particular tumor in a particular person is surviving in terms of metabolic pathway, in terms of nutrition. And in this regard, we are applying this data into a machine learning algorithm, part of artificial intelligence, that will tell us how to take care of this aspect of cancer. In essence, since everybody and every tumor has a certain genes that are being expressed, turn into mRNA, turns into protein, and then into metabolites, and together with our microbiome, which is very important, these are a group of bacteria that lives with us. The metabolic pathway of a certain cancer is being determined. What I want to show, before I will discuss these slides, I just want to reiterate what I try to express, probably not too eloquently, since I have spoken and speaking now English only maybe once a month. So,
Itzhak, if I could interrupt for a second, we got a great question from Milt Zigerman.
Yep.
He's asking, how is the algorithm designed and who actually wrote the algorithm?
So me and another person wrote the algorithm, and it is of course, it's a patentable algorithm, and it designed to understand. So we know that about 60% of the pancreatic cancer and the triple-negative breast cancer are addicted to glutamine, which means everything that they do, they convert into glutamine, and glutamine is the major energy source. However, in each tumor, there are also other modifiers of this glutamine addiction. And the algorithm identifies how strong is this glutamine addiction and what are the other components, to what extent. And so I hope that this answered the question. And from this, I'm gonna continue telling you what I started just before the question. So these tumors are addicted to glutamine. Of course, there are other factors that affect this dependency in glutamine. This algorithm explained to us how this affects the metabolism of the tumor. And then what we do is we actually block this pathway. How we block this pathway? In essence, there are three ways that we block pathways, nutritional pathways. Number one, in terms of glutamine, there is a drug that's called Feburan that blocks glutamine metabolism. Number two, we modify the diet of the person in order to direct it to consume less glutamine. And that also has to do with the algorithm. And number three, with supplements. So what I wanted to show you here is please look at the picture here at the left lower corner of the slide. What you see here is mice. This is in a way, this is a PET scan of a mouse. What you see here in blue in a mouse are actually tumors. What you see here is a mice that in week 1 and week 2 that didn't get any anti-tumor, anti-glutamine therapy. What you see here is a mice at week 1, and this is in week 2 that got glutamine, anti-glutamine therapy, and you can see here how the cancer disappeared. This is the gist of the basic science to what we are doing in human beings. If you may, please look at the right lower quadrant. You will see Kaplan-Meier survival curves, and you can see that mice that did not receive therapy that blocks the glutamine died earlier, while mice that got glutamine therapy, anti-glutamine therapy, survived longer. So again, what we do as part of this work, we are creating profiles in that fashion. I will enlarge it so you will understand. And we will understand, this is it's called a radar diagram. And we understand from this diagram and from the diagram below how the tumor is modifying the utilization or the usage of amino acid. And based on this, we plan anti-glutamine therapy. So I have about two or three more slides. So what is the unmet need? Look, we are treating for years tumors with chemotherapy. We have not improved much survival. In the 60s and 70s, the median average survival of cancer patients all over it's actually the data is from the States, was about 50%. About 2 years ago, the same data was analyzed, and the average survival of all cancers is about 66%. So we, by absolute percent, we improved survival by 16%. By relative is about by 30%. For some people, it's an amazing achievement, but for us who see patients who are dying every day, it's not good enough. So we are attacking here in Soroka cancer from all directions, not only by chemotherapy. You all know, and I'm sure that you have had many discussions about biologicals and immunologicals. We are adding anti-cancer stem cell therapy, and we are adding now the nutritional. I'm just gonna take a very short break to tell you something. So we are all very excited now about the vaccines, and we look at the technology and that they use, i.e. putting mRNA into nanoparticle and then infuse them into the body. And it's amazing how people think, and many of my colleagues, that it is a new technology. But let me tell you something. In 2008, the first trial that was conducted in the same technology, putting what we call siRNA in the same nanoparticles and giving it to patients with metastatic pancreatic cancer into the liver, was done in the NCI by me. It was the first ever usage of this technology in cancer. So these vaccines, the technology in the vaccines are not that very new. 2008 in cancer, we performed the first study on this. So this was just a digression. So what is the unmet need? The unmet need is that,
Professor Avital, if I could,
Sure.
I want to do another interruption on the topic you were just talking about. So
My
we got a question from Robin Skolnick about mRNA and the vaccines.
Yes, sir.
She's asking for advice for cancer patients as it relates to taking COVID vaccines. Are there any interactions that you're aware of that might affect the vaccine's effectiveness or actually chemo treatment?
So I just last week I actually wrote the directions for all the physicians in the cancer center how to handle such cancer questions, and actually what is the basic science and what do we know. So number one, there are no contraindications to get the vaccine. So nothing will happen untowards that we know of, based on the limited data that we know, that you will give a patient vaccine. So this aspect of to be worried should be taken off the table. Second, giving vaccine to patients who receive active treatment with chemotherapy is is something that we need to discuss, because we're not sure about the effectiveness. Why? Because chemotherapy decreases the effectiveness of the immune system. So if we give vaccine, we are not sure that the body will mount enough immune reaction to give the body the ability to remember and then produce antibodies later when they meet again the coronavirus. So we are just not sure about the effectiveness. Our recommendation is, if you can, wait, keep the personal protective equipment on, keep distance, wait for the time, either one, that we have more data, and second, that you get to the point where you have a break for at least 21, 28 days for the treatment that you are getting. You will have to remember that if you will get, one vaccine and it won't be effective, we're not sure that you will get this year another vaccine from another producer when you are not going to be on chemotherapy. The second aspect of it, that some people get immunotherapy treatment. For this group of patients, our recommendation is to give immunization, because this treatment just enhance the immune system. We don't know for sure what it does to the efficiency of the vaccine, but we're not that worried that it actually decreases its efficiency. In terms of patients who are receiving biologicals, so certain biological like imatinib, which is a common biological, this particular drug and some others indeed affect the immune system. But for other biologicals, they do not affect the immune system, and we think it's safe to get immunization on treatment. Did I answer the question?
You did. Thank you very much.
Okay. So moving on for the last two slides. So what is the unmet need? Because cancer is still the #1 killer in Israel, the second killer in the United States, and we are not that effective. I cited for you the numbers, the cancers that we are doing better, cancers that we are doing worse. For example, I chose to deal with metastatic cancer of several types, but I invest a lot in pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer has a Jewish aspect because of the BRCA mutation, and it becomes now the 4th and the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States and Israel. So it is a very important cancer to us all around the world, and we would like to attack it from every aspect. And the undiscovered yet or the ultimate frontiers now is cancer stem cells and nutrition. And in terms of nutrition, this is what we do right now. I'm jumping several slides to take you to this slide. And what I want to tell you is about a trial that we are trying to put on based on the data that I just showed you. I skipped a couple of slides which demonstrate some evidence from a not clinical trial, but basic science trials. So what we are trying to take is pancreatic cancer patient, both metastatic and post-resection, triple negative breast cancer, colorectal cancer, metastatic and post-resection, and lung cancer, which is unresectable. All problematic cancer, which our solution, the standard solutions are very limited. To a large extent, these cancers are addicted to glutamine. So we have the drug that we can give to block the glutamine. It's called Feburon. It's a daily regimen for several times a day. The problem is that you can't adjust the level of the glutamine to the level of the Feburon. So you don't know how to prescribe the dose. And for this, we need to daily monitor the urine glutamine. So we can do daily adjustment in a precise fashion, and each person will get its own algorithm and treatment plan. What we want to develop, which we have it on the paper, but we have to execute it, it's a cell phone-based urine glutamine level detector. It's a sample. It's something which is from the engineering part. We know how to produce it. It's something that you stick like any instrument that you stick in the cell phone, and you dip it in, not the cell phone. You dip it in the urine, and it reads the level of glutamine. That reading of the glutamine gets into an algorithm, which is artificially intelligence-based algorithm, and it gives the patient instruction for that particular day, how much of the Feburon to take and other modification for his or her diet. And
Itzhak, we're starting to run a little short on time, and we got another really good question in from Joyce Gervin.
Terrific. That's the end of my talk. That's what I had to say.
Perfect timing. Then I think we can just stop the share on the slideshow, and we'll be able to see your face even more prominently.
Okay, done.
Perfect. So Joyce, thank you very much. Joyce Gervin's asking if you could just speak a little bit to how to decrease or inhibit glutamine via diet.
Okay, so so these things, what we do is we just modify the level of the type of proteins that the patient consume. A lot of it is done by actually powdered protein that eliminate glutamine and other amino acids that readily convert into glutamine.
Thank you very much. So we're almost at our closing time. We called this webinar for 30 minutes. It could go on really for a long time. We have several questions from the audience that are pretty technical in nature. We're going to do our best to get those questions answered. But one of them that's come up, I think is a little broader, from Violet Zeitlin is, could you just explain a little bit why pancreatic cancer is so difficult? Why is the survival rate so much lower?
So to this, what I can answer that I wish I knew. I would have been in Stockholm next. I would be in Stockholm next year. We actually don't know why the survival is so low. However, we have a couple of suggestions. So first, we discover it in advanced stages. Only 15% of patients are being diagnosed at the point where we can actually resect it. So and that's all over the world. For 85% of the patients, the surgery is not an option. And when surgery is not an option for solid organ cancer, like breast, liver, colon, a pancreatic cancer, cure is not an option. Chemotherapy does not cure cancer. It prolongs life, but does not cure it. So this is one aspect of it. Now, why we discover it late? It is because it is deep in our body, and it takes time until it actually produces symptoms. And the most common symptoms that it produces is actually jaundice and no pain. So that's one. Second, this is a tumor which is especially notorious for having a scar tissue with it. So even if we have chemotherapy, which in the lab is effective, it doesn't get efficiently into actually the cells within the tumor because it have a very tough stroma. That's the scar-like tissue within the tumor. So we are not effectively hitting these cells. However, bottom line, I wish I knew, I wish anybody knew, I wish anybody could tell me why the survival is so bad relative to others.
Thank you. One last question. Could you just give a little status on the difference in terms of precision medicine and treatment in Israel versus the States?
So it goes like this. It depends where in Israel. I will speak only on legacy heritage. You have to differentiate between two expressions: precision medicine and personalized medicine. Personalized medicine is when you have two patients. One is a violinist and one is a model. And they can choose the chemotherapy with similar effectiveness. The violinist will not choose chemotherapy that affect the fingers, and the model will not choose a chemotherapy that makes her hair fall or his hair fall. So that's personalized medicine. Precision medicine in legacy heritage oncology center. I would say that approximately 60% of the patients get genetic profiling to try to personalize the treatment based on mutations. It, of course, depends on the stage. The difference is in Israel, it's not, for most cancer, it's not in the basket that the government provide, and patients has to buy themselves. It's expensive to the average Israeli. It's about 20 to 25,000 Israeli shekels, something around the level of about $5,000. In the United States, if you have if you work, you have insurance. For most cancer, for most situations, it is covered almost entirely. Thus, it's easier to get it in the United States, and you get better treatment in that perspective. We use a lot of philanthropy in order to buy our patient genetic profiling. However, saying that, the physicians here are precision medicine oriented, and we have a molecular tumor board on a monthly basis that we run these patients, discuss, trying to find resources and the proper precision therapy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I just want to close by saying thank you to the participants. Professor Avital, you held the audience in this webinar, probably about as good as anybody that I've seen. We have almost everybody stayed for the entire time. We again want to thank Rachel for the partnership with the American Friends of Soroka Medical Center. I want to thank Melody Mokhtarian and the incredible team. She's our Director of Events and Experiences, but also Kara Bortman and Ronnie Strong, and our Chief Marketing Officer, who do so much work to pull off these webinars virtually every other week. Please join us if you enjoyed this for our next hashtag webinar Wednesday, except this time it's going to be on a Thursday, January 21st, for a fireside virtual chat with Ben Gurion University President Daniel Shamovitz. David Ben-Gurion, the founder and first prime minister of Israel, and the guy whose name is on the door of the university, said, "It is in the Negev that the Jewish scientific talent and ability for research shall be tested." And today, I think we saw this very well with Professor Itzhak Avital and the incredible work going on between Ben-Gurion University and Soroka Medical Center as it relates to cancer. Thank you all for joining us. Be safe and stay healthy.